Here's something that should be completely impossible. Right now, the U.S. housing market is seeing the lowest number of home sales since 1995. Fewer homes are being bought and sold than at any point in nearly 30 years. And at the exact same time, home prices are sitting near all-time highs. Think about that for a second. Fewer buyers, but higher prices. In any normal market, those two cancel each other out. That's basic supply and demand. You probably learned it in school. Less demand leads to prices falling. More demand leads to prices rising. Simple. But that's not what's happening here. Instead, the market is stuck, frozen. Prices are still high. Homes aren't moving. And the average first-time home buyer is now 40 years old. If you've looked at houses recently, you've probably felt it. Something is off. Something doesn't add up. You just can't quite explain why. I'm Jake, and today we're going to break this down step by step with the actual numbers so you understand exactly what happened and what it means for you. Let's start with the basics. The median home price in the U.S. right now is about $418,000. Back in 2019, it was $272,000. That's a 46% increase. Not in expensive cities, not in luxury markets. That's the national median, the middle of the entire country. At the same time, mortgage rates today are around 6.5%. That might not sound crazy until you remember something. In early 2021, you could get a 30-year mortgage for 2.65%. That's not a small difference. That's a completely different financial reality. Let's break it down. Same house, $400,000 price, 20% down at 2.65%. Your monthly payment is about $1,293. At 6.5%, that same loan costs about $2,023 per month. That's $730 more every month for 30 years. Same house, same location, same everything. And on top of that, the house itself now costs about $146,000 more than it did a few years ago. So you're paying more for the house and more for the loan at the same time. That's not random. That's the result of a very specific chain of events. Let's go back to 2020. The world shuts down. The economy is unstable. So the Federal Reserve steps in and drops interest rates to basically zero. On top of that, they start pumping money into the system, buying bonds and mortgage-backed securities every month. The goal was simple: keep the economy alive. By early 2021, mortgage rates hit 2.65%, the lowest level in decades. And suddenly, people realized they could afford way more house for the same monthly payment. So they started buying a lot. But that wasn't the only thing happening. The pandemic also changed how people lived. Your home wasn't just your home anymore. It became your office, your gym, your social life. And for a lot of people, small apartments suddenly felt unbearable. At the same time, remote work exploded from under 6% to over 18%. And millions of people started asking a simple question: if I can work from anywhere, why am I living here? So they moved. People left big cities like New York, San Francisco, and Chicago, and they flooded into places like Austin, Phoenix, Boise, Nashville, and Tampa. Places that already didn't have enough housing. Now imagine what happens when demand explodes, supply stays limited, prices go up fast. Between March 2020 and March 2022, home prices jumped 37% nationally. Some cities saw even more. Austin to plus 61%, Phoenix to plus 59%, Boise to plus 53%. At one point, thousands of homes were selling for $100,000 plus over asking price for normal houses. If you bought during that time, you probably made one of the best financial decisions of your life. Not because you were smart, because of timing. Then everything changed. By mid-2022, inflation hit 9.1%, the highest in 40 years. So the Federal Reserve did what it always does in that situation. It raised interest rates. Fast, In just 16 months, rates went from near zero to over 5%, the fastest increase in decades. Mortgage rates followed. Early 2022 to approximately 3.2% by 2022 to approximately 7%, 2023 peak to approximately 7.8%. And suddenly we're gone. Buying a house became extremely expensive. That same $320,000 loan, at 7.8%, it costs over $2,300 per month. That's more than $1,000 extra per month compared to pandemic rates. Over time, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars more. So what happens? People stop buying. And that's exactly what we saw. Home sales dropped from about 6.1 million in 2021 to just over 4 million recently. That's one of the slowest periods in decades. So demand clearly dropped, which should mean prices fall, right? Except they didn't. Prices stayed high. And this is where things get really interesting. Because something else happened at the same time. Supply also dropped. And the reason is something called the lock-in effect. Here's what that means. Around 51% of all mortgages in the U.S. have rates below 4%. About 20% are below 3%. If someone bought a house in 2020 or 2021, they locked in an incredibly cheap loan. That kind of loan doesn't exist anymore. So now ask yourself, if you had a 2.7% mortgage, would you give that up to take a 6.5% mortgage? Probably not, because doing that would cost you around $730 more per month. That's over $87,000 extra in just 10 years, just to move. So what do people do? They stay. Even if the house is too small, even if they want to move, they stay because financially it makes no sense to leave. And when millions of homeowners think that way, homes don't get listed, inventory drops, supply shrinks. So now we have a situation where buyers can't afford homes leads to demand drops. Sellers won't sell leads to supply drops. And when both fall at the same time, the market freezes, not crashing, not growing, just stuck. Now let's talk about what this actually looks like for a real person. Let's call her Maya. She's 31, she has a stable job, makes about $74,000 a year, good credit, no major debt, saved around $31,000. By any normal standard, she should be able to buy a home. But here's the reality. The median home in her area is around $385,000. With 10% down, her loan is about $346,500. At current rates, her monthly payment is around $2,190. Add taxes, insurance, maintenance. Total monthly cost, about $3,100. She takes home about $4,650 per month. That means housing would take up 65% of her income. That's not sustainable. Not because she did something wrong, because the math doesn't work. And there are millions of people like her doing everything right and still locked out. And this is showing up in the data. First-time buyers now make up just 21% of purchases. Historically, it's around 40%. The average first-time buyer is now 40 years old. It used to be around 28. That delay costs people long-term wealth because they miss years of price growth. At the same time, older buyers, especially those who already own homes, have a huge advantage. Many are buying with cash, selling a home bought decades ago, and using that equity to buy again, while younger buyers are competing with savings and loans, and this is affecting life decisions too. A large percentage of younger people are delaying, marriage, having kids, major life milestones. Some have even given up on buying a home entirely. But here's something most people don't realize. This problem didn't start in 2020. It started much earlier. After the 2008 financial crisis, builders slowed down construction for years. The U.S. is now short by about 3.5 to 4.5 million homes. And most of what was built wasn't affordable housing. Starter homes, the entry point for most buyers, have basically disappeared. So even before the pandemic, supply was already tight. Then came cheap money, massive demand, rapid price growth, and then high interest rates all stacked on top of each other. Now, a common question is this another 2008 crash? Short answer, no. Back then, the problem was bad loans. People were borrowing money they couldn't repay. Today, lending is much stricter. People have better credit, more equity, so this isn't a fragile system. It's a restricted system, expensive, and stuck. So what happens next? Most people are waiting for mortgage rates to drop. And yes, that would help. But it's not a perfect solution, because if rates drop quickly, a lot of buyers will jump back into the market. At the same time, supply won't increase fast enough. And when that happens, prices could go up again. So even the solution has its own problem. The most realistic outcome is slower, a gradual adjustment over several years, where prices stabilize and incomes slowly rise and the market slowly unlocks. But that takes time, years. So if you're in your 20s or 30s right now, you're dealing with one of the most difficult housing markets in modern history. Not the most dramatic, but definitely one of the hardest to navigate, because it doesn't feel like a crisis. It just feels normal, even though it isn't. And here's the most important part. You're not failing. The system is just out of sync. Right now, the income needed to afford the average home is around $106,000. The median household income is about $83,700. That's a $22,000 gap before you even start. So if you're thinking about buying, don't follow the hype, follow the math. If your housing cost is around 30% of your income and you plan to stay long-term, it can make sense. If not, it doesn't. And that's okay, because renting and investing your money elsewhere is still a valid strategy, even if no one is telling you that. The housing market today is the result of ultra-low interest rates, rapid rate hikes, and a decade of underbuilding. All combined, buyers are stuck, sellers are stuck, everyone is stuck. And that's why the market feels broken. Because in many ways, it is. If you've been looking at homes and thinking, this doesn't make sense, you're right, it doesn't, but now you understand why. And that's what actually matters. Because once you understand the system, you can make better decisions inside it. That's it for today. If this helped you see things more clearly, stick around. We're just getting started.